Paper Mario: The Origami King is so damn good. I was genuinely impressed by how good this game ended up being. It might very well rival Thousand Year Door in how much soul and care seems to have been put into this game. They managed to pack this game full of so many interesting themes, memorable characters, iconic locations, probably the best OST in a Paper Mario game, and just so much more. This is going to be another video like my Thousand Year Door one because there's just so much that I want to discuss with this game. It is just such a crime that not more people realize how good this game can be. While yes, it has its flaws and less stellar moments, but its good aspects far outweigh its negatives to me and makes this a genuinely worthy Paper Mario in my eyes. So sit back and relax as we dive into the good and the bad of Paper Mario: The Origami King. The prologue, you can say, is pretty simple. I do definitely like the twist of going to Peach's castle and instead of something going wrong after you arrive, like for example 64 and Sticker Star, you're too late and the damage has already been done. The slow talking of all the origami characters definitely puts you off, and even more so once you get dropped to the basement. The basement itself is over quickly. You get Olivia out of the wall, get your hammer, notice some of Bowser's minions being turned into origami, get Bowser, and leave. Pretty standard stuff. Then Ollie makes his first appearance, and oh my god is he goofy. I cannot possibly take him seriously with that dumbass haircut. He expositions a bit, and then wraps the castle in streamers. Mario, Olivia, and Bowser escape in a clown car in an admittedly super cool cinematic scene, and now we're in a random forest. Man, does this forest not set a good impression for the rest of the game in the slightest. This forest is way too much wandering around with almost nothing happening. This was also the only portion of the game for which I also had a friend on call with me to help, and it still took me a solid 20 to 25 minutes to get to the sentient trees. You help save the old guy, they give you a dance number, and you're done. Whoopee! Once you reach the Toad Cookout place, you just have a bit left until you reach Toad Town. Here witness the first paper machos, which are neat little ideas, gigantic enemies you have to fight on the overworld instead of an actual battle. They make for interesting little threats, although they are almost always really easy to beat. Eventually, one Toad tells you that you need to go to the sewers to reach the ruins of Peach's castle. You see Luigi's hat, and when I originally came here, I low-key thought it was Luigi's spirit that was talking to you. Turns out, no, he's just stuck in a wall. I was so confused as to why I couldn't leave the area at first, and then I thought to go to that little castle piece and a magic circle just appeared. I guess I'm just stupid. Now, this is a complaint that really only applies to the first couple bits of the game, but oh my god is this game bright. I could not get invested when Olivia was mourning over Luigi from his hat because of how bright everything around her was. They saturate it so much. They do fix this as the game goes on, but it is a genuine weak point of the beginning, and I felt that I needed to mention it. After saving Luigi, Chapter 1 more or less begins. Chapter 1 is a pretty boring opener. It's by far the most simple chapter and by far the most reminiscent of Sticker Star. It's just going to a location and then getting the thing that resides in said location. The fact that this is an actual world instead of Sticker Star's levels helps a lot though, and there are more aspects that I'll discuss when they come up. Picnic Road is whatever, more so just an introduction to the general way you'll traverse these chapters. It's fine, I just wish it were a bit more. Overlook Mountain is a decent enough location, but the distinct lack of a final dungeon, or at least a long-lasting one, starts to show itself here. The tower at the top of the mountain is a genuinely cool dungeon thing. It's pretty much just pure puzzles, not much battling, and that's fine. Olivia discovering the saying separate the art from the artist is also cute. I'd say now's a good time for me to discuss Olivia. She'll become more important in Chapter 2 and onwards, but for Chapter 1 it's just you and her. Obviously I'd have preferred for Olivia to have someone to talk to, but just seeing her discover the world around her is just so cute. I really like her enthusiasm towards everything and everyone. She's just such a pure soul, and I don't mind the fact that they give her a lot of dialogue. I genuinely don't mind that. You get to see her somewhat evolve throughout the game, and to me, it's just heartwarming. Anyway, back to this. The end of chapter dungeons kind of have to share the runtime of one dungeon from the older games because of the Valumental Caverns. The Earth one here resides, and it's pretty simple. Getting the shell stones is stupid, since the one behind the wall on the mountain is just pure bullshit, but whatever. The cave itself is fine. It's an introduction to both these caverns and the boss fight system. I'll talk about the battle system too, but I first want to discuss the boss fight system. I think that while it lacks the strategy and depth of TTYD in 64, that doesn't necessarily necessarily make it bad, it entirely depends on your personal preference. If you prefer traditional battle system and dislike puzzles, this is absolutely not for you and you'll despise it. However, if you don't mind the puzzle-focused battles, some of these are genuinely fun. I'll talk about the good and bad bosses when they arrive again, but just know that this battle system is entirely reliant on whether you like puzzles or not. I personally didn't mind it and actually enjoyed a handful of bosses, but oh my god, I can see someone who would hate this system with their whole heart. The fact that both the cavern at the end of and the end of chapter dungeons have to share the amount of time they take is once again reliant on what you prefer. If you prefer stuff like 64's Crystal Palace or TTYD's Hooktail Castle, then you'll probably find these half-baked. I personally don't mind both ways. TTYD has some really suckish dungeons in it, and so does 64. The two I just mentioned, along with TTYD's Great Tree, are definitely good examples of this. However, with Origami King, besides the Ice Temple and the Temple of Shrooms, there isn't really a dungeon that overstays its welcome, and they're all over pretty fast. Some might view this as a bad thing, but really, I don't mind it. The pencil boss is definitely a weird first boss, but eh. One thing I really appreciate them doing is, but isn't really good either, is them dropping notes telling you what the fuck to do in boss fights. Some of these bosses are so confusing, and the real only hints you get are these notes and asking Olivia. And while I appreciate them doing this, it would have been so much better if they could just telegraph them better. Some bosses that would really benefit from telegraphing are the Elastic Bandman, the Hole Puncher, oh my god, the Hole Puncher, and the Sumo Bro, and while we're at it, sure, the Fire Elemental. And now we're at the Red Streamer. Wow, that was quite a lot of nothing we just went through. I guess I can give it a pass since it's the first chapter, but oh my god, this would benefit from having a partner so hard. I don't mind Olivia by herself, but when the place you go to is just a mountain, I need something more. It's a pretty good introduction to the game, but it's also a pretty bad one at the same time. It's good since it introduces the gameplay loop fine enough, but it's bad since there's almost no plot whatsoever. I'm just a bit underwhelmed, really, so to say. Here's to hoping the rest will get better. Chapter 2 is actually so insanely good. Now, something Origami King does differently from the old Paper Marios is that the chapters pretty much have no breathing room in between them, no wandering around Toad Town or Rogueport. Here you just get plunged directly into Autumn Mountain with near nothing in between. It'd be nice to have stuff like the Peach and Bowser cutscenes in 64 and TTYD, but Peach is origami and Bowser is a square, so there's not much plot that they can do with them. So I don't really mind. The in-betweens, specifically the Peach ones from TTYD, were some of my least favorite parts of that game, so I don't really care that they're gone. Anyway, entering the gondola, or whatever that is, we meet up with the first honest-to-god Paper Mario partner in at the very least 13 years. Bobby is genuinely great. His laid-back personality meshes with Olivia's unbridled enthusiasm so well, and they're just the power couple of this chapter. Bobby not wanting to join you at the beginning and then changing his mind feels so in character for him, it's insane. I think I'll just let this clip of me finding out Bobby follows you on the overworld speak for itself here. Oh my god, he fucking follows me! And also, I know this fucking music! Dude, I'm so giddy. I am so giddy right now. Holy shit. This is my genuine reaction, by the way. The second that I saw him follow me, I was like, fuck, get the OBS out. Oh my god. I know that this seems like such a small deal, but oh my god, it feels so special. On a mountain to top this all off is beautiful. This is genuinely such a sick location, I love it. Bobby's amnesia, getting him into every precarious situation ever, is also cute. His interactions with Olivia are wholesome, just everything about this chapter nails the vibes. Chestnut Valley has one of the most memorable songs in the entire game. Speaking of, I should probably talk about the music now, as it seems like a good time to do so. This might very well be the best Paper Mario soundtrack of the games I've played. I don't know if Super or Color Splash will be better, but I doubt it. There are just so many banger songs. Some of my favorite Mario music of all time is from this game, and here's some examples. The title screen, Autumn Mountain's battle theme, the final boss theme, Chestnut Valley, all extremely recognizable. Just genuinely insane tunes on this one. Anyway, it's been a while since I've complained, so here's something. Bobby deciding to sit the water shrine out really pissed me off. Like, come on, it's just a fucking water shrine. The water shrine has some interesting stuff in it, like the sliding puzzles, but everything else is just kinda whatever. The boss itself is neat, I had fun with it, but it's nothing to write home about. Now, Shogun Studios. I don't know how to feel about this place, because on one hand, having the final dungeon of the Paper Mario be a theme park is such a cool idea, but on the other hand, man can this place be annoying. They didn't really execute their idea too well, but that doesn't mean that it's bad, not in the slightest. The going back and forward with the random items that you have to take from place to place is a bit annoying, but manageable. But oh my god, having to find Luigi in the ninja house is really stupid. That ninja house in general took me so goddamn long to do the first time, and when I found out that I had to find some random other thing in there, I just shut off the game and came back the next day. Like, oh my god, that just sucks. And also Bobby sits that out too, which pissed me off, but whatever. There's stuff that this place actually does really well. The masks in the employee room is a cool detail, and I love the references that Bobby and Olivia make. It's just genuinely really cool. The way you get into Big Show Theater is clever, and Big Show Theater itself might just be one of my favorite parts of this game. It is such a creative idea, and reminds me of Floor 8 in Luigi's Mansion 3, but way better. The boss is so goddamn silly that I couldn't focus on anything but the Steve Gaming music whenever he enters the scene. He's a fine enough boss, but man, can he be annoying if you don't want to try the 1000 fold arms. You just have to constantly bash your head against the wall until you decide to try the 1000 fold arms, and then like, oh. He's serviceable and an adequate boss for this chapter, but he can be annoying. The fireworks at the end and Bobby regaining his memory is a genuinely neat moment, and that's chapter 2. I was genuinely impressed by this chapter. It was just so solid the whole way through. Bobby and Olivia carried this chapter so hard, since all their dialogue together is just a joy to read. I just really enjoy them as characters. It did have some hurdles along the way, like Shogun Studios being really annoying sometimes, but all is well since you can pet the dog. Chapter 3 begins with Ollie quite literally attempting to murder his sister. This was quite the whiplash from just being at a theme park to that. Bobby wants to go to the ship for reasons not told. You go there and get assaulted by the massive Sticker Star reference attacking you. Gooper Blooper is a cool reference to Sticker Star, and as much as that game sucks, this is actually a cool reference, and him being a boss you fight on the overworld instead of actually battling him is neat. He's a lot like the Luigi's Mansion bosses. Wow, that's a second comparison to Luigi's Mansion I've made in this video. That's definitely something. Anyway, you get the thing that Bobby wants, go back to where Olivia is, and then he starts expositioning. Bobby tells you that Bob-ombs live pretty short lives, and their whole goal in said life is to have an impact. And then Bobby pulls out what was in that box, which turned out to be his deceased friend's fuse, which he had kept as a memory of him. He puts the fuse on, lights himself up, and sacrifices himself to save Olivia. This is such a good emotional moment. I can't even describe how I felt whenever it happened. Bobby is one of the few partners in this game that gets character development, and him saving Olivia feels genuinely earned. He was on a quest to get his memories back, and he did, as well as getting new ones that he treasured. I just genuinely love this moment so much. It's so good, but also super sad. Bobby is simply gone. In a franchise notorious for not being able to kill off anyone ever, actually having someone die feels so much more impactful, and what happens after is even better. Olivia realizes what just happened and runs off into the cave, blaming herself for Bobby's death. Just walking through this cave feels so sad and lonely. I cannot describe how good of a moment this is. Bobby's spirit talking to you one last time once again feels so earned. I just genuinely love this moment so much. Making Olivia laugh by using the Goomba mask is such a neat little detail they snuck into. Just all of this is great. It's like the devs remembered this is a Paper Mario game, so we need to have some emotional moments throughout, and they absolutely nailed this one. Back to the desert that we were in the middle of when all this got started. All of Scorching Sandpaper Desert is just running around until we get to Sniffit City and finding Professor Toad in the big-ass Pokey. Then it's running around with some more puzzles. This takes a really long time, but it's just barely enough to where it's not insufferable. Sniffit City is a genuinely cool location, and what you do there is interesting, I guess. The running around the desert and going to each tower after scouring random jewels, though, isn't. It just takes forever. I'll admit, this is a cool idea, but 4 of them is a bit much. I think if you eradicate the one where the jewel is just in between some cacti, then it's fine. Eclipse the sun above the lake is a really cool riddle, although I get that not many people will know how to do it. I still think it should stay though. The foot one is an introduction, so fine, and the other one I forget can stay since 2 is a bit much. The fire shrine is neat, I have nothing to say about it. It looks pretty, but like nothing more. The boss is fun, but once again doesn't have much to talk about. Actually, it does. It's so cryptic. Like, there's no way for you to find out the order in which you need to do stuff unless you read the letters. But like, I've already complained about this, so I'm just gonna move on. The Temple of Shrooms is neat. Though, holy shit, entering the temple, it doesn't seem like it's anything too special, and then just the faceless toad appears, and it's like, whoa. This game is really good at tonal whiplash, Jesus Christ. The gathering of all the toads is also annoying, mostly because of the sarcophagus room, which I really hate. Having to whack those things only to find toads 1 HP apart and one thing of stairs is just so tedious, and I don't like it. The scene after you gather all of them and all the CDs to boot is super neat, like, oh my god, gathering all this shit takes forever, and that's my problem with it. Hole Puncher is one of my least favorite bosses to, you know, add more. He's guaranteed to bite the on tile, and I could not figure out for the life of me how to get that on to function. And I was just stuck in a loop, and that's how I figured out how to get the on, which by the way took 3 attempts. Which I might add, you have to sit through the dance sequence every time. So I just really dislike this boss for that. Oh yeah, and I completely forgot Professor Toad. I got through the whole chapter without talking about him in detail, and yeah, that pretty much tells you all you need to know. He's just a gigantic pile of nothing. No character development, his actual personality is just being an archaeologist and professor. He doesn't bounce off of Olivia, and he doesn't really know how to bounce off of Olivia. And he doesn't do much for the plot except for reading the ancient scriptures. Yippee. He's just so nothing, especially after we just got Bobby. And to top it all off, he doesn't even go with you for the rest of the game. If you try to leave the desert, he just says, nah, I'll sit here until you return. Thanks a bunch, game, that's great. I know I've been complaining a ton about the second half of this chapter, but that's just because it genuinely takes so long, and the 2 dungeons are either alright or drag on too long. Professor Toad is a really disappointing partner, Hole Puncher is a really shitty boss, and the only thing that really saves this chapter is all the Bobby stuff and first going into the desert. Once you get to Sniffit City, it becomes so drawn out, and I just don't really vibe with it. The first half of this chapter is genuinely amazing stuff. The second half is just slow. Sorry. Chapter 4 is probably the shallowest chapter in the entire game, which is, you know, very fitting. The entire chapter takes place in the Great Sea, and oh my god is it slow. It's supposed to feel like a grand voyage type deal, and for the first part it seems cool. Bonehead Island is a neat location, and the second sticker star reference in this ocean is once again tastefully done. Then the island searching part begins, and I completely lost all interest in this. In case you didn't know, this is what the sea chart looks like after you're done. Unless you get the boat upgrade to make it go faster, be prepared to spend an eternity roaming around the sea looking for clues. There's one genuinely amazing moment buried in the sea of monotony. Wow, I'm just on a roll with these sea jokes right now. Mushroom Island is amazing. Getting to see the origami craftsman and Olivia reconnecting with her home is just genuinely super cool moment, and I just love it a lot. It's definitely the highlight of this entire chapter to me. Everything else until we get to Diamond Island is just boring, and I don't feel like talking about it. Diamond Island is cool, the trials are neat, although over quickly. The real star of the show here is the Ice Elemental Shrine. It's definitely the hardest shrine in the game, at least to me, but it's also the last one, so I guess fair. The puzzles in here are actually pretty cool. Get it? I swear you just cannot stop me right now. The Ice Elemental itself is a neat boss, just like all the others, really. And finally, the Sea Tower is actually a pretty damn cool final dungeon. It's short and sweet, since the Ice Shrine is definitely the primary dungeon of this chapter, but that's fine. The 2 floors dedicated to 2 separate elementals each is a cool idea, and the puzzles aren't too intrusive. The tape is also the best end of chapter boss so far. You understand how to beat him from the very beginning, and he still puts up a bit of a fight, even though he might also be the easiest end of chapter boss. And well, that's the whole chapter. It's pretty uninteresting, but it definitely picked up near the end. The Sea Tower in its entirety is good, Olivia and the Origami Craftsman make for one of the strongest moments in the game, and the Ice Shrine is probably the most creative shrine yet, although also the hardest. But all of that just gets dragged down by how slow navigating the sea is. This chapter is the only chapter besides the third that took me 3 entire sessions to take down. It is long, and most of that is spent not in the good parts. So while it had its shining moments, overall it's pretty uninteresting and definitely a contender for the worst chapter in the game. Alright, time for the final streamer, one we have just not seen until now. Chapter 5, here we go. Chapters 4 and 5 have absolutely nothing in between each other. As soon as you break the purple streamer, the green one just appears. You begin your ascension to heaven and arrive in a place that looks just like the Geometry Dash level I just referenced. I wasn't expecting that joke to actually land, but okay. Shangri Spa is definitely a unique location, that's for sure. I would have never expected out of all things for this to be the final chapter before Ollie. Anyway, you pay your entry fee in what is basically $1 in this universe. Olivia discovers what hot springs are. We walk outside and see the fact that all of Bowser's minions were turned to unpaid employees at the spa. Once again, I was not expecting that whatsoever, but it's very welcome. We team up with Kamek of all characters, walk like 20 meters, and then see Bowser Jr. get fucking chopped right in front of us. This is probably another Sticker Star reference, as there's a scripted fight in which we are forced to use scissors on him in that game. Wow, this game really likes Sticker Star references. Anyway, the first half of this chapter is traveling with Kamek and Bowser Jr. to all the hot springs to restore Bowser Jr. I do not know how a hot spring will literally put his body back together, but whatever, game, you do you. The jungle you have to traverse to get to one of the springs is definitely a shining moment of this chapter. Olivia and Kamek have good chemistry with each other, and they're definitely the highlights of this chapter once again. Traveling with them all throughout the spots is fun, and their interactions are fun. The jungle itself and being chased by the Paper Macho Chain Chomp is another surprisingly dark moment this game just threw in because it felt like it. You get a bunch of pickup hats, and if you choose wrong, you literally get eaten. The entire jungle is just a really strong story point, although another noteworthy thing that happens here is Sniff It or Whiff It, except they changed the name for some reason. The game show it's still the exact same. That's the 4th Sticker Star reference in this game, by the way. Anyway, once we've restored Bowser Jr., we can venture into Bowser's Castle. This is just such a fitting final chapter dungeon. I love it. The Sumo Bro is one of the worst bosses in the game, right up there with Hole Puncher. I'm not even gonna bother with him, he's just unfun. Anyway, Bowser's Castle is probably the best dungeon in this game. When you first enter, you see all the folded dudes having a banquet, which is one of my favorite shots in the game, by the way. I don't know, there's just something about it that I just find cool. Kamek calls all the minions to fight so we can get through. We need to go to Kamek's room because he has the key to the main hallway thing, so we do that, and then after we obtain the key, Olivia gets kidnapped right in front of us by a gigantic black hand thing. The music that plays right after this is so ominous and genuinely does a good job at putting you on edge, since everything is completely empty with the exception of the black soldier things, which to me for some reason are really off-putting. The scene is just done so insanely well, and once again, it is once again a big highlight of not only this chapter, but in the whole game. The hallway right before the final chapter boss is also very ominous. Just seeing cut up portions of Bowser's minions is way darker than you might realize at first thought. The hand that captured Olivia fights you here, and you play rock, paper, scissors with it, which I think is really funny. It's a creative fight and doesn't last too long. I don't even care that this chapter is the only one with 3 standard boss fights instead of 2. You could have very well cut the Sumo Bro, but he's not that big of a nuisance. Anyway, grab Olivia and then fight a gigantic Buzzy Beetle made out of pieces of Bowser's minions. I don't understand how this game is rated 7. Anyway, he's a neat little boss, just another Luigi's Mansion-esque boss like Gooper Blooper and the Paper Mache Pokey. He's down relatively easily, although not without taking Kamek with him. The final boss is Scissors, which makes sense, I guess. He's actually not a bad boss. He tells you how he functions immediately, and let's be honest, if you jump into Scissors as Paper, you deserve the insta-kill. Which I do like, but what I don't like is that his special attack, his final cut move, also insta-kills. That's just unfair. You know that 1-up that you get at the very beginning of the game? I used it against that. Still, he's an alright boss. You could do a lot better, but you could do a lot worse. And that's the streamer. This is a contender for my favorite chapter in the game, and I don't know if it quite beats Chapter 2, but it's pretty close. It's definitely the originality of it that makes me like it as much as I do. Shangri Spa is a location I never expected. Kamek and Bowser Jr. as partners is something I never expected. Bowser's Castle is a really good dungeon despite it being relatively short. It's just all around good. Now let's go after Ollie. Chapter 6 begins once again immediately after ending Chapter 5. You save Bowser for the second time this game, and together with him, Kamek, Bowser Jr. and all his troops, which by the way were revived after beating the Scissors, you embark on an airship to Ollie. Olivia seeing a group of Bob-Bombs and then thinking she's hallucinating seeing Bobby again is cute. The airship is basically a shooting minigame, and it's great. I love how Kamek and Bowser Jr. act like walking Rhythm Heaven references. It's all super creative and really cool. Landing in the volcano, a gigantic avalanche of Goombas rains down on you and you have to leave Kamek and Bowser Jr. behind, which means your partner for Chapter 6 is fucking Bowser. Ollie's Origami Castle is cool, too bad it lasts like 30 minutes altogether. It's just barely long enough to where you're not left feeling disappointed like Sticker Star's one hallway, but not as long as, let's say, the Palace of Shadow or Bowser's Castle in 64. It still definitely feels like a final dungeon, and it's very punishing if you fall in the flowers? The bulk of it is over pretty quickly. The true fun begins after the bulk of the castle's over. The Stapler is a good boss. The fact that you can snap him open if you finish him with the 1000 forearms is a cool detail, although I admit, pretty gruesome. Entering Ollie's room, he monologues to us, tells us his plan, and then we begin battle. Ollie's a genuinely pretty cool boss. His motivation is pretty basic, just racism and being mad at the Origami Craftsman for writing on him. It makes sense that we'd have to use all the stuff we've gathered throughout the game, which basically means use your four elementals whenever he uses the elemental of the opposite type. After finishing off his first phase, he becomes big, so Olivia makes Bowser big, and it's basically just Tamagotchi Life wrestling now, except instead of spamming the touchscreen, you shake your controller violently. It's not that bad and definitely tense, although I can't take this phase seriously whatsoever. The final phase is by far the stupidest. This goddamn floor is so hard to align and it will take you a while to make it, and you'll definitely have some deaths here. Thankfully the game was generous enough to let you restart from the beginning of the phase, and the same goes for the whole fight actually, which is just an absolute godsend. Once you finish the circle, Olivia becomes a hammer and knocks Ollie to the Shadow Realm, and then the fight's over. Outside of that alternate dimension we were sent to while fighting, Ollie is almost dead and changes his last wish. He wants Olivia to make him into the final grade so she can grant a wish. Olivia then wishes for all the origami made by her brother be undone, and that, if you remember the scene in Chapter 4, includes her. I couldn't even really say anything here, I just sat in silence as the ending played. I would play the clip of me beating the game, but it's just me being silent for like 5 minutes straight. The game ends with everyone letting lanterns off into the sky while the Origami Craftsman puts out the castle that we saw in his house in Chapter 4. This game doesn't have a parade like was tradition for a while, it just ends with Mario and Luigi going back in their cart. Well, at least Olivia got to see Bobby again. Paper Mario, the Origami King, is just genuinely so much better than everyone says it is. While yes, it definitely has its weak spots, which if you let them can ruin the game for you. Like, it's just, if you're not a fan of puzzles being your main way of battling, then there's a big chance you'll dislike this game. But to me at least, the good outweighs the bad by a lot. The good parts of this game are just genuinely amazing and elevate my enjoyment of it so hard. Most of the characters are great. Bobby, Olivia, Kamek, and Bowser Jr., all of them are really enjoyable and have good chemistry in their dialogue. I think the plot and characters in general are what really shines. The gameplay is extremely subjective. Some may like it while others hate it with every bone in their body. But what you can't deny is that it doesn't shy away from darker themes and manages to pull off some things that even the original trilogy struggled with. And that, to me, makes it a really good game. It's not a perfect Paper Mario, but it is a damn good one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.